Hello RH fans, so today's video blog is about what do you need to execute your project. Do you need a tailor or a seamstress? The mistake that we make when speaking about tailors and seamstresses is that we use the word tailor to mean a man who sews for a living and seamstress a woman who sews for a living. And while most tailors are men and most seamstresses are women, this is not the reason why we call one a tailor and one a seamstress. They're actually two completely different professions. They learn how to do things in two completely different manners. They make two completely different kinds of clothing. And it's very possible to be a male seamster, not seamstress, or a female tailor. Matter of fact, one of the most famous bespoke tailoring shops in London recently made history by promoting a woman to the role of cutter, which is the highest management position in a tailoring shop. So that was kind of revolutionary, to have a female cutter in one of the world's most highly respected British tailoring shops. Not that it should not have been long ago, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so let me put on my historian hat for a moment here and bore for my country. So if you don't like history, just take a little nap and then I'll wake you up when I'm done. The word tailor comes from a 19th century Anglo-French word, tailleur, which I have no idea if I'm pronouncing properly because I don't speak Anglo-French in the 13th century, which comes from the old French tailleur, which is tailor, but literally a cutter because it comes from the verb tailler in French, which means to cut. This comes from an even earlier Latin word, talia, which is a stick, rod, staff, cutting, or twig. So maybe that was the measuring stick that tailors used. So they were called stickers, people who used sticks or people who used measuring devices. The word, even today in French, doesn't really mean someone who sews at all. It means someone who cuts or someone who measures. And the French word taille, which comes from tailor, means size. If you look at a label in a piece of clothing that's made in France, it'll say taille, where we would say size. So it means your measurements. So the word tailor means measuring or cutting, or a person who measures or cuts, not a person who sews at all. Seamstress, the difference there is seamstress wasn't used until the 1640s, which is quite late. And it's from the old English word semestre, which is a person whose profession is sewing, whose work is sewing. So that actually means someone who sews. And we say the word seamstress like it's always a woman, or the ending in English, tress, means woman, or female profession. You can also be a seamster. We don't normally say someone is a seamster, but that's actually the way you should say it. If you have a man who sews in a way that a seamstress does, he's a seamster. But more importantly, it's not just that a tailor measures and cuts things and a seamstress sews them. That's not the difference. That's what the words mean, the profession names originally meant. But what they do sew are actually two completely different things. If you go into a tailor shop, one of the things that you're going to find, matter of fact, almost exclusively what you'll find are suits, jackets, pants. There was a time in the history of tailoring, or the history of clothing, when tailors made men's clothing and seamstresses made women's clothing, but that soon came to not be the case. The fact of the matter was that men's clothing was highly structured, uniforms and jackets and things that needed to be cut very precisely and to have canvases and interlinings and padding in them to make the proper shape. Whereas women, now while women used support structures under their clothing, those support structures, the corsets and crinolines and these different kinds of things weren't made by the seamstress herself. They were made, a stay maker made stays, corset maker. So the seamstress was building clothing on top of these already existing structures, whereas a tailor is building the structure into the clothing. The structure is part of the jacket. You take the jacket off, the structure goes away. Back in the reign, I think it was Louis XIII, so the king before Louis XIV, the king before the Sun King, French king. I think it was Louis XIII. It may have been Louis XIV. I'm not really sure. Don't have my book in front of me. Specified what seamstresses in France were responsible for and what tailors were responsible for. And tailors did all of men's clothing, all of men's suits, and they also did women's riding habits, because riding habits were based on men's suits. They look like female versions of men's suits, except for the fact that they have these big, huge skirts. And so that was all the tailor's job. And still, you can draw a line down those same lines and say, if it's a suit, whether it's a male or female suit, if it's made out of wool specifically, but you know, there's suits made out of linen and silk as well. But if it's wool, if it's suit-like, it's a tailor's job. If it's linen, just as a broad category, linen, cotton, if it doesn't have an inherent structure, so underwear, gowns, this kind of thing, those are things that are made by seamstresses. And then seamstresses started to put structure into the gowns they made later, but originally women were making what was referred to as small clothes, which is basically underwear. Women, the seamstresses, also made men's shirts because they're structureless linen garments. They made men's underwear because they're structureless linen garments. So basically anything you can fold up and put in a drawer, a seamstress makes, and anything you have to hang on a hanger, a tailor makes. I know that that kind of falls down in the modern definition, but costume historian, I have to think historically. so there you have it, if the origins of the professions tailor and seamstress. But I hope that'll give you an idea of whatever you're thinking of. If you want to have something made, for example, if you want to go to a party where there's going to be ragtime music and you want to wear a 20s dress, well, that's a job for a seamstress because it's a pretty much unstructured dress. You don't need to have a tailor to make something like that. But if you're going to, say you're doing, you're learning how to ride side saddle, and you need a garment that you're going to wear at this side saddle show or performance, you want to go to a tailor because the tailor is going to make the proper structured garments for you. Or if you're going on a walking holiday and you need to have a coat that's made so that you can wear it in all kinds of weather while you're out walking, and it needs to be properly structured so that it doesn't just hang on you. When it gets wet, it sheds the water. These things need to be thought about by your sewing professional. So that's a tailor's job. So basically, I always think of it as, you know, does it look like a suit? Does it quack like a suit? If it's a suit, tailor makes it. If it's anything else, a seamstress makes it. There are seamstresses who do tailoring work. There aren't an awful lot of tailors who do seamstress work. Although, if you go to a tailor shop, you can't wear a suit without wearing a shirt as well. Now, most tailoring shops aren't going to make a custom shirt for you. They'll sell you a shirt that they have in their shop, you know, off the rack. Although if you want a custom shirt, they'll send you to a custom shirt maker, which is a type of seamstress or seamster. So if you go to the wrong person, if you go to a tailor and say, can you make me this dress? The tailor generally will say to you, we don't make dresses, and probably hand you the phone number of someone who does. So, you know, you're not going to die if you go and ask a tailor for the wrong thing. And generally, you know, people in the garment industry know other people in the garment industry, and we're always willing to pass people off to our friends and colleagues so that, you know, everybody gets a good turn. So it's not vital that you go to the right person, but you might waste some time if you have this whole list of things you want made and you go to a tailor and they're not things that are tailored, they're seamstress work. but really asking the right questions, knowing what you want in the first place, it narrows down your list. And anytime you narrow down your list, obviously you can save yourself some time. Personally, if you have never had anything made by a tailor, figure out something to have made by a tailor, because even if you're not a suit wearing person, just to have something, even if it's just a vest, waistcoat, or a winter coat, it's an interesting experience. It's a very different experience than going to a seamstress and having yourself measured for a dress. And it's, I'm kind of a fan of tailoring. I think it's, the engineer in me really enjoys the amount of structure that you could build into something that's soft and comfortable. It's like architecture for clothing. And I just think it's really interesting, so I share that, put that out there in the world. What a neat experience, go to a tailor and have something made just for the hell of it. But pretty much, that's it. Tailor, if it's a suit-like garment, if it's a garment that has to have an inherent structure, if it's wool in particular, go to a tailor. If your garment is, if you can fold it up and put it in a drawer, if it's flimsy, if it's flowy, that's something that a seamstress or seamster makes, so go to a seamstress. And that's it for today's blog. Stay tuned next week when we actually start our search. Thanks very much. See you soon.